beef cattle losses on intensive fattening farms. Before giving her the word, for those who are not familiar with the project BovINE, I've prepared a few slides just to illustrate you what is the objective of the project BovINE. Yes. Well, the project is called BovINE, which stands for Beef Innovation Network Europe. It's a project about the exchange and the dissemination of innovations for beef cattle farmers in Europe. It's a so-called European Innovation Network with national and regional networks. Afterwards, we will show you where these national networks are operating. There are committed partners, advisors, communicators, and practitioners involved. And this network is using a bottom-up approach in the sense that we are trying to reply to the needs and to expressed by the European farmers for innovation. And it is a multi-actor project. It's academics together with farmers associations together in all the 9 countries involved, which are running together this project, which is coordinated by the Irish Institute Chagask, a well-known institute in Europe. And the project is not about generating new research, but its main objective is to disseminate the innovations which have already there, either scientific innovation or practice-based innovations. The next slide will show you there's maybe some, yes, there are these countries which are involved. Ireland is the coordinator, and you see her Maeve Henschen on the right side of this photograph. Belgium, Germany, France, Estonia, Spain, Poland, Portugal, and Italy. 18 partners. In each country we have an academic partner and a practice-based partner, let's say the beef cattle farmers associations. Altogether 9 countries, and we are trying to reach the 255,000 beef cattle farmers with a €2 million budget for 3 years for the 3 years project. The next slide will show you. There's some delay, perhaps. Yes. This slide is showing you the essence of the project, in the sense that in the heart of the project is the knowledge exchange. We are focusing on exchange of knowledge between academics and farmers, but also academics can learn from farmers. So practice-based innovation and science-based innovation altogether. In these 3 years, we want to share among the beef cattle farmers in such a way that knowledge which is already there in one country will be disseminated in another country, for example. And this is the main aim of this beef innovation network, BovINE. And we have, I will show you afterwards, 4 thematic areas. And the main thematic area of this webinar is the socioeconomic resilience area. We will show you now the next slide. Yes, and these are the countries which are involved. As you see, Estonia, Poland in the east, Germany in the heart of Europe, where France, the UK and Ireland, Spain, Italy and Portugal, and Belgium. All these countries are involved in this network. And now the last slide will show you the thematic areas. Well, first of all, we have all the partners, the participants, which you see in the first circle, the committed media partners, because in each country we have a connection with media partners, reviews, farmers, journals, and in all the different countries, in such a way that the results are disseminated not only in English, but also in all the different languages of the 9 countries. And most of the innovations are published in these committed reviews. Farmers Journal, you see in the center, but Infamatore Zootecnico, for example, in Italy is another example of this immediate partner. And we have an advisory group composed of Copa Cogeca, the European Platform of Advisors, and the European Roundtable of Beef companies in Europe are in the advisory group. The next slide then will show you the 4 thematic areas. So we are trying to find innovations to be disseminated in the field of socioeconomic resilience, animal health and welfare, production efficiency and meat quality, and environmental sustainability. These are the 4 main themes. And each year we have for each theme 2 topics. And in this webinar, we will face one of the topics we have dealt with last year, which is related to the socioeconomic resilience, which is in fact the risk management for beef cattle farms. And that's the objective of this webinar, to disseminate the results of a research which has been carried out by Marta Brscic of the University of Padova, which has as a title, Risk Factors Associated with Beef Cattle Losses on Intensive Fattening Farms. And this research has been carried out by her a few years ago. It has been published in a peer-reviewed journal, so it's a scientific research, and she will now illustrate in her slides the main results and also how she obtained these results in 3 countries, because it's being carried out in Austria, Germany, and Italy. So please, Marta, you have the floor for this presentation.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. I thank very much all of you for being here, and in particular, Kees De Roest for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity, Minerva, and of course the BovINE project. So I'm an academic, and I'm really thankful for these bridges. I'll try to enter tiptoes into your world, hope to manage it. You will tell me afterwards. So yes, we did this research in Austria, Germany, and Italy because they were part of the welfare quality project at the time. And I'm really happy now to tell you, first of all, why I'm interested in mortality, in cattle losses, actually. So this is going to be the presentation, the index. So you will, sorry, I'm having a little trouble, but now it's okay. So yes, I will do an introduction why I'm interested in the risks and the animal-based measures, why mortality is an important animal-based measure, the impact of mortality on sustainability, of course, and then we will go through this paper that we managed to publish some years ago. And of course, I have several co-authors that helped me in this research. We will go through some materials and methods, but basically on the results, and we can discuss them together. So I'm an animal welfarist, and if I put animal welfare in the middle, in this case, what happens? So here is a beef animal in the middle, and on the right side, what I have here are these what we call resource and management based measures. They're all those measures that we can actually assess if we want to measure the welfare of the animal. But these are also those that we can work on, so the environment, the fixtures of the farms, and the management that includes also the human-animal interaction and the feeding of the animals. And on the right side, we have all those animal-based measures that we are interested in, the pathological ones, the behavioral ones, the physiological ones. So if we turn upside down these arrows, resource we can become our inputs, so everything we put in, whereas these are the outcomes. So what we measure outcomes of the animal, and mortality is one of these outcomes. It's a late indicator of animal welfare, because of course it occurs at the very end. When I talk about mortality, I mean mortality, euthanized animals, and early culled animals. This measure is aspecific. It can be due to several reasons, and of course it's hidden to me, but it's something you are aware of, and you can, being aware of it, you can handle. So if we put this line here, being it the finishing cycle, going from housing to slaughter, you know, and you are aware much better than me, that not all culls are the same. So if it occurs at the very beginning, it's different compared if it occurs at some mid-finishing or towards the end of the finishing. And it has an important impact on the farm, the socio-economic resilience, so lower incomes, higher costs for disposal of the carcasses, lower meat quality, lower production efficiency. And it also has an impact on the environment, of course, on the environmental sustainability, because, of course, the greater is this line towards not finishing, then, of course, you have given housing, feed, and your labor to animals that didn't turn out into proper great beef, okay, meat. So what we did is, in these 3 countries, we selected farms that already had alternatives housing systems to the fully slaughted pens, that fattened intact bulls and had at least 3 finishing pens with bulls over 350 kilograms of live weight. And this is because in these farms, we went to do several repeated visits on farm to assess the welfare of the animals. We interviewed the farmer and collected samples of TMR. So during this interview, we asked the farmer to record the number of dead, euthanized, or early culled animals over the last 12 months. And we, of course, did the proportion to calculate mortality with the animals that were brought in or reared over the last 12 months. Then we asked everything about cleanliness of the animal facilities, cattle health management, the feeding management, including if they do chemical analysis of the feed, for example, how they calculate the rations, how they manage the groups, the animals at arrival, what was the animal-human interaction in terms of proportion of people caring of a given number of animals, and how they manage cattle transport and the origin of the animals. On the samples, we did chemical analysis and particle size distribution. And then what we built was to put this all together. So mortality was our response variable. I'm sorry that you don't see me because I usually talk with my hands a lot, but I don't know what I did to turn off my camera. It appears on, but so mortality was.
I can't see you.
Ah, okay, okay. I'm sorry, because it says that you can't see me. Okay. So mortality was the response variable, and then we fed all the factors to how it relates to mortality. So we had 56 categorized factors that then dropped to 28, if my memory doesn't go wrong, because we excluded some that had lots of missing data, or where the answer was always the same. So more than 80% of the answer was in a single level of the factor. So because they did all the same. For example, they did all the cleaning of the pens before putting in newly brought in animals. Then we tried one factor at a time, how it relates to mortality. If the factor was had a tendency of significance, we included it further in. We also tried to avoid confounders, so those factors that are confounding each other. One example could be, for example, the moisture and dry matter, just in very, very simple. So they are, of course, confounding each other. And then the thing that gave me lots of headaches is just choice of the models. Because whenever I removed one model, then all the significance of the others drop out. So there was something that really took me lots of time and sleep. But finally, I'm thankful to Kees that this is worth it. Was worth it. So just to help you in the interpretation of my last table, so you will see the risk factor here, and this has different levels of comparison. So if you see an odds ratio, I helped with colors, but greater than 1, which means that this acts as a risk factor. So that I expect it is highly, it is probable that the prevalence A is greater than prevalence B, and so the level 1 acts as a risk factor compared to level 2, B in this case. If this odds ratio is smaller than 1, then it reduces the risk. It's sort of preventive measure. We can't talk about preventive measures, but it reduces the risk of mortality in this case. So this is an overview of what we found. We found, of course, mortality, but always considering also euthanized and culled animals, going from 0% to 18.2%. And you see that the most, both lower quartile and upper quartile are here below 4%. Okay, so the mean was 2.9 and the standard deviation was 3.5%. So acting on this as our response variable, we can, I extracted some, there is a very big table on these single factors individually acting on mortality. And these are prevalences, these are not odds ratios. So you see, for example, that the existence of a herd health plan, actually not having it, compared to having it, the prevalence went from 3.3 to 1.9% of mortality. If the basis of the formulation of the rations was, for example, on their own experience or on the cattle requirements compared to just formulating based on what they had, so the available feed ingredients, it kind of reduced the risk because the prevalence was lower compared to a higher prevalence in this individual risk factors. So they are not correlated, they don't have anything to do one with the other, they're just single factors. If they didn't do any chemical analysis on the different components nor on the entire diet, so none, compared to at least analyzing the coarse silage or some diet ingredients individually, again, none was higher than just analyzing some ingredients. And if they analyze the total mix ratio, the mortality was lower. If we go to the multivariable final model, so these are connected and not confounding with other factors of included in this multivariable model, you can see that not mixing the animal during transport reduces the risk. So I put it green. This is not the prevalence of mortality. The mortality was again around 3%. Towards a smaller percentage, but it was kind of a preventive measure, not mixing animals during transport. Whereas buying animals from different sources, so more than 5 herds, or compared from 1 to 5 herds compared to a single herd, it in both cases acted as a risk factor. So it increased the risk of mortality for more than 2 times in this case. If they didn't have a presence of a dedicated sick pen, it again acted as a risk factor. And the same, again, if they didn't keep production records. So it sort of underlined the attention that the farmers in this case put towards the health and the welfare of the animals. And I also went very fast. So actually the suggestions would be, of course, to replace fully slatted floors, or at least go for alternatives. To reduce the number of farms, or actually ideally go for a single farm as a calves origin, which means that you would of course need to reduce the number of suppliers and make sure that your supplier can kind of give you enough animals to house together in a single delivery. Exact rations, that's something that is suggested also by the International World Organization, the Terrestrial Code. Besides the suggestion by EFSA that you should provide at least 15% of effective roughage, but that you should also go and seek for a nutritionist if you have health problems related to the diet. Ideally, a health plan should be there, both for the measures that, let's say, maybe the preventive measures, so the metaphylaxis measures, but also in case of yes, of course, of diseases and outbreaks. And we saw that having a dedicated sick pen was a good thing. And of course, no mixing of animals during transportation was one of the other suggestions that was picked up by this research. Yeah, these are actually the suggestions that Kees picked up from my study. I was very, very happy about it. And it summarizes actually the conclusions from this desk-based work, which I did at the end of the welfare quality project, because we published actually the researchers that were directly involved, and Marlene Kirchner in particular, they published the outcomes of the animal-based measures applied on the animals. This was the last animal-based measure that came from the records, along with all this information collected on the farm. And take to this project, to this paper, I started quilting. So I shared this quilt of drawing from Belzoni. With this, I thank you. I thank again Kees De Roest, the BovINE Project, Minerva, all my co-authors for making, of course, this possible, and all of you for your attention. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marta, for this interesting presentation. The fact that it has been done a few years ago, I don't think that it compromises the conclusions, because when you have done such a research on so many farms, they are still valid, I think, also for this, when we are now in 2021. But of course, I would like to, not to talk myself, but give the questions. I would like to ask those who are interested to pose questions, because now we have time for the questions, of course, to pose the questions directly. So please, who wants to start?
I would have a question, Alexander, here, if that's all right.
Could you please tell your name and where you come from?
Yes, I'm Alexander. I'm from Germany. I'm working as a scientist at the Institute of Animal Welfare and Animal Husbandry. Thank you for your talk. I just had a question about the reasons for the mortality. Did you record those? And did you analyze the different reasons for mortalities? Because I would imagine if, I don't know, a cow gets struck by lightning or something, that has very little to do with animal welfare. And so sort of like, did you sort of categorize the different mortalities and the reasons for it in your analysis?
That's a very good question. Thank you. We thought about it a lot, but unfortunately, we didn't have data from all the farms. Actually, we had data for from very little farms, because these were, in general, farm data by not single record, by so the experimental unit was farm and not the individual animal. Yes, so which means that we had some farmers who recorded very roughly lameness rather than respiratory diseases, but it was an overall estimate, and it was not a precise data we had. And so there are some, yes, who had accidents or injuries that put it in the notes, but yes, the data were not really reliable from to put it on a scientific publication. It would be really interesting, yes, because they are different, of course.
Okay, thank you.
And there was this country effect also linked to the different way of recording data probably as well, which is something that should be emphasized, to record it in a homogeneous way.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, please, the second question. We have time, we have till 15 minutes at least, so please pose the question. Well, as a matter of fact, I would like to pose a question as well, Marta. I was thinking about quarantine area, where the animals can stay for a week or a few weeks before going into the pens. Were there farms, how did you consider this eventual factor?
It was there. The results were unexpected, because actually it went the other way around. So who had the quarantine had higher mortality than who didn't. I should have included it, which doesn't mean that it is something that I don't suggest of having. Yeah, there was 1% of difference in the mortality level. So it was 2.2, if I'm not wrong, compared to 3.1 or 2. yeah, I don't feel like not suggesting having the quarantine area for the aspects we all know linked to the commingling of different animals from different sources and microbial spreading around. There is one other suggestion. I'm not sure if I answered to your question.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Can I make a question?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Have you managed to assess in terms of
Please, can you present yourself?
Sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm Magda,
yeah,
from Lisbon, University of Lisbon, vet faculty, and I'm a partner in BovINE. Have you tried to assess in terms of economic impact? When you mentioned there was an impact in the socioeconomic resilience because you had some improvement in productivity and things like that. Have you managed to measure in terms of financial results? Sorry, I'll have to close the door.
No, don't worry. We are all in this situation.
Sorry.
No, don't worry. My kids are just outside, so no, actually, what happens is that we had some rough estimates, but since this was done at the very end, the animals were slaughtered already. It was hard to go back and to see actually what happened. And yeah, it was yes, at the very end of the project. What they did of interest within welfare quality was that they gave different feedbacks to these farmers in terms of animal welfare. Not the economic, impact, but we did some just rough estimates, which of course are based on the market price that was there, and what actually would be really interesting to do. I did it in another Italian study, very small, was to see the date of of death or culling compared to the entering date to see if this culling occurs, if most of cullings occur at an early or a late stage.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for the interesting.
Marta, there is also a question in the chat of Rhonda Smith. The question is, were there any marked differences between the results of each of the 3 countries involved in the research? So between the countries, did you see differences?
Yes, there was a difference, but as I mentioned earlier, first we didn't decide to include it as a factor. It was a corrective factor in the multivariate analysis. I didn't mention it. We didn't want to include the results as a single country effect. First, because the farmers can't actually change the country in which they are having their farm. And the other thing is that actually it is likely that the some mortality, euthanasia, and culling is recorded differently. We also correlated it with farm size. It seems that the largest are the farms, the lower is the mortality. But that's also something that is connected and has to do with the country. Definitely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
These farms had all these criteria for which there was no fully slatted floors included. So there were some strict basic issues that all of them had to have to be included. May I
Please.
add a suggestion?
Yeah, yeah, please.
That's a personal feeling. I think that beef farmers should start also kind of paying more attention to their own safety, because yes, we were all focused on what all these farms had, but most of these farms didn't have some kind of facilities to move animals, to kind of handle them and yeah, to move animals in. So that's something that I would personally suggest for the yeah, the safety of the farmers,
Of the personnel and the staff.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah. No, good. Good.
that's something.
Please,
that
other. Yeah. Very important. Very important. Please, are there other questions? There are also people from Spain, from Germany. Do you recognize these results in your country? Well, perhaps you have been very, very clear. Please, yes.
Respond. Just another quick question, then, slightly
Yes.
building on your point about the safety of the farmer, and also the situation with, if you like, beef farming. You know, compared within the modern setting where there is a greater move to be more conscious of animal welfare. In your experience, in your country and elsewhere, is that call for better welfare a very strong one, or what? How do you see that going forward?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I'm not sure I have the answer. The issue is that yes, consumers are moving forward and asking for higher welfare standards, but on the other side, they are relatively confused. What happened in Italy, for example, are some mediatic events that reduced the trust towards labels, animal welfare labels, and assessment systems. So I think that yes, the push is towards higher welfare standards, but on the one side there's greater confusion and a lot of people just dropping from consuming meat, and similar happens with milk and dairy products as well. So yeah, I think that producers have hard times to meet these expectations, and maybe transparency is the only way forward. Do you agree? Do you have another opinion? Because I'm really interested also in hearing from your side.
Yes. You suggested, or you stated earlier, that the larger farms tended to have the lower mortality, which may seem to indicate that the larger farms have more resources at their disposal to have the sick pen, you know, the health plan, and so on. So going forward, do you think that larger units is possibly the way that's going to take us through this issue?
I'm not sure, because they had lower mortality. What we didn't manage to investigate, and I would really be interested in, is the amount of pharmaceutical treatments in all these or other farms where studies are done. So something that should be compared also and go in parallel are pharmaceutical treatments. in particular nowadays with antibiotic resistance and all these issues that we are facing. Rather than seeing the way of large farms as a scenario, I would really spur farm efficiency with 360 degrees around impact on the environment and everything. So the social impact and all together. And I'm not sure that intensive large farms are the solution.
Thank you.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, perhaps I didn't mean intensive. I meant just perhaps larger units, but maybe the two are the same. Maybe we can't split and say that larger units will, on the whole, be intensive units. Thank you. It's a very difficult area, isn't it? Thank you for your perspective.
Please, is there still a last question? A burning question? If not, then we thank Marta for this presentation very much. Perhaps Rhonda, Mimi, do you want to intervene for closing as well this webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. First of all, thank you to our wonderful speaker, Marta. It's been absolutely brilliant having you here, and I think we've all really enjoyed your talk today. Thank you to Kees, who organised this, and also thank you to everyone who was able to make it here today. I do hope you've all enjoyed it, and this is the first of a series of webinars that the BovINE project will be hosting moving forward. So please do keep an eye out on our social media channels, as well as on our website, and the website is just there, bovineu.net, and please keep an eye out for more details on these webinars going forward. So thank you once again, and have a wonderful evening to everybody.
Thank you indeed. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Kees.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
For this great
Thank you.
opportunity.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.